Shocking allegations have been brought out on this app this week as dozens of viral videos have been released by small business owners all across the United States, often 1, 2, and 3-person small businesses that have come trying to draw attention to the fact that they claim this company, Francesca's, has been shorting them or not paying their bills to them, sometimes in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, and essentially bankrupting these small businesses. And we have to ask ourselves how a company like Francesca's with 461 locations across the United States has been allowed to stop paying their bills to small businesses while they continue to run up massive tabs. And can we do anything about it? Well, I'm here to tell you we can help save these small businesses. And if I'm here, you already know how it's happening. It's happening because they got acquired by private equity. Let's get into it and let's talk about how we can save these small businesses, work together, and fight back. Unless you've been living under a rock, chances are you have seen at least one of several viral videos like this one from @Mugsby, or this one from @SammyGoranArt, or this one from Haley Liz Design. But what if I told you that those were just the tip of the iceberg and that there's actually dozens of small businesses all across the United States, many of them owed $100,000 or more, many of them not paid for more than a year or more, and they're continuing to get orders while Francesca demands they continue to ship to comply with their contracts, even though Francesca's isn't complying with their end and actually paying the bill. 10 years ago, Francesca's was valued at more than $1 billion, traded on the NASDAQ and doing well. Unfortunately, they did what every company does in chasing that big capitalist pie in the sky. They expanded too fast, took on too much debt, over-leveraged themselves, and ended up with debt in the realm of about $100 million. But again, they were still valued at $1 billion. They should have been okay. COVID took an even bigger toll, and they ended up filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection in December of 2020. Now, I don't know if you know this, but whenever some big corporation files a bankruptcy, it doesn't mean that company goes away. It means some other company is going to swoop in, buy up the assets for cheap, and they're going to keep trying to make money off of it in a new way by liquidating assets, liquidating real estate, and finding new ways to churn cash out of it, while the old company just kind of goes away, and all of the creditors get screwed, including all of the small business owners they owed money to at that point. It was during the bankruptcy process that they secured a $25 million loan from Tiger Finance, which is a private equity-owned finance company, and then in January of 2021 got approval to sell to Terramar Capital. Now, Terramar Capital is like a nothing burger of a private equity firm. They hadn't bought very much, and one of the businesses they bought had already gone belly up. But hey, the finance bros, and they just decided they could handle this. To give you an idea just how successful this private equity firm was, they were founded in 2015 and already had their first bankruptcy of an acquired company by 2017. Remember when I said that these private equity firms swoop in and pick up the pieces for pennies on the dollar? Well, this private equity firm was able to swoop in and buy up Francesca's 461 stores, all of their assets and all of their intellectual property for a paltry $18 million on a company that was valued at $1 billion less than a decade ago and $500 million just a couple years ago. As a part of the bankruptcy, they promised to liquidate first 125 stores and then another 97 stores, but assured the bankruptcy trustee that they would keep at least 275 stores open and that they would expand their offerings to include teens, tweens, and athleisure, which they mean to make good on and recently have. In promising to expand to go after those teens, tweens, and the athleisure set, they went and acquired Richer Poorer. Richer Poorer is a Miley Cyrus favorite and has been endorsed by a ton of celebrities. The question is, how did Francesca's buy this when they were already having problems? And the answer is, they probably stacked even more debt on an already troubled company. Because shortly after the acquisition and the other acquisition of a company called Frankie, that's their new athleisure set, sources started saying, we've got a liquidity problem and it's starting to show. Interestingly, just before starting the process of acquiring Richer Poorer, the CEO announced an ambitious 5-year plan to reopen all of the formerly closed and liquidated stores they had agreed to liquidate as part of the bankruptcy restructuring, and then suddenly had all this cash to buy these 2 other companies. Strangely enough, it's almost like they needed to have a higher valuation so they could get credit for all that debt. But we're just speculating. Because only a couple months later, Sourcing Journal, which is a trade magazine that covers whether or not people should be allowing companies to source goods from them, came in and said, Francesca's has a serious liquidity problem and we've got the goods to prove it. In that article, Sourcing Journal said many sources confirm that vendors hadn't been paid for months, some with close to a year. And many of those impacted were smaller companies that can't afford not to get paid because they are largely unfactored. They don't have extra credit and they don't have the ability to float these large orders for Francesca. Now, small vendors are usually the first ones to get wind that something's wrong on the liquidity front because they are always running shorter terms and they need to get paid, so they're going to stay on top of it, whereas larger vendors might give a little more grace. But one of the biggest warning signs was that Francesca started demanding that all of their invoice terms immediately move from net 30, which means you owe the money 30 days after the items arrive, to net 90 without any room for negotiation with their vendors. But many of these vendors are way past the 120-day mark, even if they were on net 30, and these accounts are all in the 100,000 plus range. Shockingly, Francesca's merchants are still calling, demanding more deliveries when they have not paid for all of the items they've already been delivered months and months ago. But the news just gets worse because then in March, Sourcing Journal came out with a damning article demonstrating that regular creditors have now started calling on debt and they are downgrading the ratings of Francesca's based on very upsetting information on their payment history to their vendors. In the article, Credit Safe Data, a data aggregator that talks about the creditworthiness of major corporations all across the world, showed that they had serious concerns about continuing liquidity issues. When they said they had serious concerns about continued liquidity issues, they estimated that they were $1 million over budget, and then said that on-time payments had gone from 71.9% of all of their payments in December of 2023 to only 21% of their payments in January. But it gets way worse. It said that from December of 2023, they were making only 15% of their payments late, but by January, 66.4% of their payments were over 30 days late. And come a month later, we moved to the 31 to 60 day late category, where from January 2024 at 2.4% being 30 days or more late, we went to 60% of all of their bills being more than 30 to 60 days late. And by March, more than 15% were late more than 90 days. But for some reason, they still had the cash to go and buy these other companies that they were trying to expand. And I posit to you this: I think they're getting ready for another bankruptcy filing, and I think they're going to stick all these small business owners with a check. I hope I'm wrong, and I'm just speculating, so don't take my word for it. But that's what I think they're about to do, and that's why I think we need to get in there and help lift these small business owners up before it's too late for their companies and they don't get paid. Remember, I said they had filed a Chapter 11 back in 2020. Well, Chapter 11s don't have a minimum wait time before you can file the next Chapter 11. And I want to remind you, all the assets were sold to a new corporation. So it wouldn't even be bound to any considerations that were held by the old corporation, which is exactly how private equity is able to acquire companies, extract every bit of wealth and revenue they can out of them for whatever their intended purposes are. And then they can leave them bankrupt and still have been made whole along the way by dividending themselves out money while screwing over their vendors. But I hope I'm wrong. But this is what always seems to happen when a private equity fund comes in. They tell their investors they have expertise in a multitude of businesses. For instance, the paltry 6 businesses that this private equity fund currently has investments in run the gamut. They have everything from Francesca's, which is apparel, and their new acquisition, Rich or Poorer, right, to Lolly and Pups, which is a candy company. On Target Solutions, Seattle Study Club, which is a continuing education dentistry school, and Cray Hair Steel, a steel distributor. There's no expertise in this private equity fund, but they have expertise in extracting money from pretty much any kind of business, and that's why we keep ending up here over and over and over again. As of 2023, any business acquired by private equity is 10 times as likely to go bankrupt in the following year. And if they've changed hands more than once, 23 times as likely to go bankrupt. But never fear, the private equity funds always come up smelling like roses. So what do we need to do for these small businesses? Well, I've tagged all of these businesses in my comments. You need to get in there, like, comment, share their content, and buy from them on TikTok Shop or in their regular websites. We need to lift them up and stop letting middlemen like Francesca's exploit small businesses to make themselves whole while screwing over small business owners all across America. Remember that in a world that's monopolized by businesses owned by a handful of billionaires, supporting small businesses is the most effective way we can fight back in the shoes we stand in today. If you're new here, my name is Tiffany. We work together to fight private equity, save small businesses in our community, and say screw you to Francesca's.